When you think about health, you probably picture one doctor and one patient. But what happens when the patient is an entire city or even a whole country? Well, that's when you need a totally different kind of expert, a public health detective. And today, we're going to flip through their playbook. Right? A broken leg, that's pretty simple. You go to a doctor, they fix it. But what about some mysterious illness that's just creeping through a city? You can't see it, you can't touch it. That's not a job for a surgeon's scalpel. That's a case for an investigator. So, how in the world do they solve a crime when the culprit is invisible? Let's find out. Okay, so first rule of any investigation, you have to know what you're up against. Before our health detectives can even think about finding the cause, they've got to measure the problem. How big is it really? And just how fast is it growing? To get a handle on the threat, they've got two main gauges. First, you've got incidence. Think of this as the speedometer of the disease. It's all about the new cases, telling us how fast this thing is spreading right now and what your immediate risk is. Then there's prevalence. This is more like the scales, measuring the total weight, the entire burden of all cases, old and new. So a really nasty but quick flu might have a super high incidence for a few weeks, but low prevalence. A chronic illness, on the other hand, that's got a massive prevalence. But here's one of the biggest challenges, and it's a huge one. What the detectives can see is almost never the whole picture. For every single person who is obviously sick, there's this hidden mass of people, folks who are undiagnosed or have no symptoms at all, but are still spreading the disease. It's just like an iceberg. The part you see is tiny compared to the real danger lurking right under the surface. So, once they've sized up the problem, our detectives need to find the culprit. What's actually causing this? To figure that out, they have to open up their analytical toolkit. Every investigation needs a solid plan. It starts with a hunch, a potential cause, which they call an exposure, like, say, smoking, and the disease, or the outcome, like lung cancer. Then you've got to decide on your strategy. Are we going to look forward in time, or are we going to trace the clues backward? And here's the most important part. You absolutely need a comparison group. Without that, a clue isn't really a clue, it's just a guess. This leads us to two classic detective methods. First is the cohort study. This is where you follow a group forward in time. It's kind of like watching a movie from the very beginning. You start with a group of people who, say, drink a specific herbal tea, and you just watch to see who develops diabetes later on. The other method is the case control study. This one works in reverse. You start at the end of the movie with people who already have diabetes, and then you hit rewind, looking back into their past to find a common clue. So how do they turn all these observations into actual proof with cold, hard numbers? One of the biggest clues is called the risk ratio. In that study with the herbal tea and diabetes, the researchers calculated a risk ratio of 0.8. Now, because that number is less than 1, it was a total plot twist. It meant the tea wasn't a risk at all. It was actually protecting people. I mean, what a brilliant piece of detective work. Finding the cause? That's half the battle, but the other half is fighting back. Once the detectives identify the threat, the very next play is to build strong defenses to protect everyone. And that defense strategy works on 3 different levels. First, you have primary prevention. This is like building a giant wall to stop the disease before it even has a chance to start. Now, if it gets past that wall, that's where secondary prevention comes in. Think of this as your early warning system, screening and testing to find it and treat it fast. And finally, for people who are already affected, we have tertiary prevention, which is all about managing the disease to reduce its long-term damage. And when we talk about that first line of defense, that primary prevention, there is one tool in the playbook that stands head and shoulders above everything else. It is the most powerful weapon we have, and that is vaccines. They stop the disease right at the source. Okay, so the final part of the playbook is all about accountability. I mean, how do we know if any of these strategies are actually working? You got to keep score. You have to measure the overall health and well-being of the entire population. A country's health report card is often something called the Human Development Index, or HDI. It scores every nation on a simple scale from 0 to 1, looking at life expectancy, education, and income all together. So to give you a real-world example, India's recent score was 0.644. That puts it at rank 134 in what's called the medium development category. It's just one number, but it gives you a powerful snapshot of a nation's health and where it needs to improve. But to measure the true cost of one specific disease, detectives use this incredibly powerful tool, the Disability Adjusted Life Year, or DALY. Now here's the key. A DALY doesn't just count deaths. It captures the years of good,
healthy life that are stolen by a disease, either by dying too early or by having to live with a disability. Every single DALY represents one full year of healthy life lost. It is the ultimate scorecard for a disease's real burden on all of us.
So there you have it. The playbook is real. The tools are there, the strategies are well known, and we even have the scorecards to see if we're winning. The real question isn't about the science anymore. It's about our choices. Which plays will we as a society decide are the most important ones to run?